Hello, and welcome to this short video explaining how EliteMobs drops work, how you can make your own, and just a few explanations about the tags. Without any further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so if you've used my plugin, you might be aware that I have a website. If not, you might still have used this loot making tool. It might look familiar to you. It is by far the easiest way to create custom loot with my plugin. Now, let's quickly create something so I can give you a proper example. We start by giving it a unique name. It doesn't really matter what it is, it has to be unique. And you have to pick an item type. Now this does matter. You can see the list of valid material types here. So you just pick whatever you want. You have to make completely sure that whatever you pick is typed exactly as in this list, or else this will simply not work. It will throw errors in console. So let's go with diamond pickaxe. Let's say my awesome sword for the name. Now you can add color codes here, and you can add formatting codes as well. It will show up properly in game. This is a lie because obviously it's a sword. Well, whatever. Let's pick a unique item lore. This is a lie because it is a lie. And item lore also can have color codes because, you know, that's pretty cool. Now, enchantments and potion effects are not mandatory, nor is the weight. But for the sake of this demonstration, I'll just show you. Well, my capture device doesn't show the list, but there is a list, don't worry. I'm not pulling this out of the void. So, you know, just pick a couple of random things. Cool. And now the potion effects are a little bit more tricky. They now have, aside from having all potion effects in Minecraft, they also have these two new settings. Now, this one selects which entity the potion effect gets applied to, whether it gets applied to the person wielding the item or the enemy getting hit by the item. Let's start with the easy setting. Let's start with applying to the person that is wielding it, because that's probably what you would usually expect. And then let's say that it's going to be applied constantly to the player over time. So the player, as long as the player is either holding or wearing this item, in this case holding since it's a pickaxe, the item will be reapplied, and when they stop equipping it, it will stop being applied. Now let's do something a little trickier. Let's do invisibility. All right, let's have it apply to the player again, and let's have it only apply when the player hits an enemy. This means that for a short period of time, which you can configure in the config settings, you will become invisible after hitting the player, as long as you hit the player with that item. Mind you that this tag only applies to items that you are actually holding at the time of hitting the player. They can be held in offhand, and it doesn't have to be that item that actually does the hitting. So you can have, say, two swords, and one of the swords has this effect and the other sword has another effect, and if you hit the player, or if you hit anything with those two swords on, all on hits potion effects will be applied, even if only one of the swords does the hitting. It doesn't have to be only swords either. It can be shields, can be food, can be any. You can pick any material. So, you know, you can check the custom charms that I made available with the plugin. They give you a pretty good idea of how flexible this system is. So do go take a look if you want to see what kind of creative things you can do with these items. Now let's go in another direction. Let's have an effect that applies to the enemy. Now, since it applies to the enemy, this third or fourth setting, depending on how you're counting. By the way, never forget these. These are always very important. You have to make sure that you fill them in. Although now this device or this web app does tell you when you forgot. So hopefully those issues are now a thing of the past. But it doesn't really matter since you made it apply to the enemy. It doesn't really read this third setting, but let's, for the sake of consistency, let's have it apply, say that it applies when the enemy gets hit. But if it doesn't matter what you pick, it doesn't change anything. If it's applied to the enemy, it's just applied to the enemy. Now, the weight system. This is a bit of a tricky one, and I'm not sure I'll be able to fully explain it in this video, but I do have a post on the GitHub wiki, which does explain in detail. So if this explanation doesn't make sense to you, hopefully the one on GitHub is available and you're able to understand from there. And if you don't, I do have a support channel on Discord. But I'll do my best to very shortly, in as few words as possible, try to explain this. There are two weight systems. The first weight system tells the plugin whether a custom drop, a dynamic drop, or a custom drop that is static drops. If you put any number here, the item that you are creating is static. If you don't put any values, or if you type in dynamic, the item is dynamic. Now, dynamic items by default have a higher chance to drop, because dynamic items only drop for mobs of certain levels, because it takes their levels into account and the item power into account. Because, if you have diamond armor in these config settings, or diamond pickaxes, as is the case here, you probably don't want level 2 mobs to drop diamond pickaxes all the time. So if you are going to create a static item, I recommend that you be very careful that you don't create something that is too powerful, because literally anything can drop that item. Or any elite mob. Now, because that's what static items are. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but that's what static items are. Static items have a chance to drop the item at any level. If it's an elite mob, it has a chance to drop a static item. Now, this gets really complicated, because there's not always a custom item available for the level of the mob. If there isn't, the only two chances that get taken into account are the procedural loot chance and the static loot chance, which completely inflates the chance that static loot will drop, which is why static loot has a chance of 1 to drop, or a weight of 1 to drop, and the procedural loot has a chance of 29 to drop. Because if it were any higher, players would only ever see static items drop. Alright, I hope this was somewhat clear. Now, the thing that this number here actually affects is not the chance for static items to drop. It's the chance that this specific item of all static items will drop. Again, if this doesn't make sense, read the GitHub wiki, because it might make more sense there. But if I set a value of 1 here, which is the default setting for all of the preloaded item drops, and if every other item has a weight of 1, then the chance of this item dropping is equal to all other items. However, if I set a weight of 2 and all of my other static items have a chance of 1, this one has twice the chance of dropping compared to any other individual static loot item. And that's roughly it. Again, GitHub wiki, if you're not, if I'm not explaining this properly. So once you are done with this, you can generate the item, and it gives you just a plain text, simple thing. And you copy this and you paste it into the item custom loot list.yml file in the plugin folder. And that's literally it. You save it, you upload it, you reload the plugin, or even better, restart the server, because people still do that these days from time to time. And you're done. The plugin will generate the item upon startup. You can use the command /EliteMobs get loot to check whether or not it's properly loaded. and, you know, have fun and make cool items.